Chapter 4 A Second Mandalorian War. On the desert wastes of Korriban, in the valley of the Sith Lords, Darth Malphus awaited Yuruski Khan's return, who was accompanied by his former master, Nikhil Rutherford. Yuruski Khan and Nikhil came forward and bowed to Malphus. Malphus had a cold smile upon his face, then said, "You have done well, Yuruski Khan. You have proven your loyalty. I see the great Master Jedi Nikhil has come before me. Are you ready to see past the lies of the Jedi?" Nikhil nodded and said, "Yes, Master. Teach me how to become stronger than the Jedi, and how to stop the Mandalorians." Darth Malphus laughed and said, "Rise, my acolytes. You will become strong together, and will defeat the Jedi. I will teach you the ways of the dark side. We will travel to Droman Kaz, where our training will begin." Darth Malphus called his ship a large destroyer, which sent a shuttle to collect them as they would prepare their voyage to the ancient Sith planet of Droman Kaz. Back on Dathomir, Dazon Garth sit at a table in former Federation Military Command base office. The Night Mother and several Night Sisters and brothers sit at the table conversing. Dazzle Street said, "We will respect your sovereignty, as long as in defense of Dathomir your people come to our aid and keep the Federation and Jedi off the planet. Our fleets will defend your planet and our army stationed at the Federation outposts and command base here." The Night Mother said, "It is agreed. We will sign the Treaty of Dathomir." A treaty would be present before the table. All members of the Mandalorian Crusade leadership, the Night Clans, signed the Treaty of Dathomir. It had become a successor state of the growing Mandalorian territory. The celebration between the Dathomirians and Mandalorians began as they began to drink and eat together. This move would have an everlasting impact upon the galaxy, as back in Coruscant things were escalating fast. The Federation Army had increased security around the Senate chambers and the former head of state. Even the Jedi Temple had Federation guards stationed at entrances restricting activity in Coruscant's upper city. In the Jedi Council chambers, Vinci would stand alone in the council to brief the events that had transpired. Grandmaster Elvin said in a stern tone, "Everyone performed their duties as well as they could. The assassination of the head of state has caused panic across the galaxy, and many blame the new Jedi Order for both the assassination and the Mandalorian Civil War. Although we know the Dark Jedi is responsible, we have identified that the research done by Master Vinci Blessed and Mantis Grebe can be credible evidence, along with recent discoveries that the Dark Jedi who was assassinated was in fact a Jedi initiate that suspect that Master Rick and Maeve had a hand to play in his fall to the dark side. Master Nikhil Rutherford and his former Padawan Yuruski Khan also suspected to fall to the dark side, as intelligence from Master Marcus Moreau would indicate so. Master Jeej had a concerned look on his face and said, "Cautious we must be. The shroud of the dark side this is." Master Aranu nodded and said, "It is clear that there is an attack on the Jedi and our order, as within the last 10 years we have lost not one but 2 Jedi Council Masters, targeted in relation to the events of the Mandalorian Civil War and this assassination on Derek Jones." Molar Questy spoke next in a calm tone and said, "The Federation is currently without a leader, as temporary status has been granted to Damamian Dusk, the runner-up from the previous election. Federation forces watched closely all around Coruscant." Chiron Dragon looked around the room and said, "Rumors have speculated that the Mandalorian Civil War is exploding into what people are calling the Second Mandalorian Wars." Wolf Zaius made a grunt and said, "An unconfirmed source from one of the Jedi Aces suggests that the Mandalorians have recently invaded Dathomir." Vinci asked, "What should we do about moving forward, Masters?" Master Elvin Merlin stroked his beard and replied, "The Order has suspected all missions involving the Mandalorian War is alert to the dark side. This is clear. All the Jedi have been ordered to refrain from being involved with the war, as it is not our duty to fight a war for the Federation. With suspicion pointed towards the Jedi, it would be best to keep to peacekeeping missions on other planets, to only assist indirectly with any refugees who may come to Coruscant or any other Federation planets. Providing relief and not interfering with the Federation military missions for the time seems to be the best course of action until directed otherwise." Vinshu nodded, feeling a bit uneasy, then said, "Understood, Master. What would you have me and my Padawan do?" Erinu smiled and said, "Your old friend Brando, the captain. Perhaps he has intel on the intelligence retrieved on Master Nikhil Rutherford. We have reason to believe Nikhil could be hiding out in Tatooine." Jeej let out a, Tatooine. Yes, go you must to Tatooine." Vinshu nodded. "I'll see what we can find out." Vinshu bowed and left the Jedi Council chambers. Andre was waiting outside for him, and he asked, "So where to next?" Vinshu said, "We got to go find Brando." Vinshu and Andre traveled to the upper city landing pads to see the Condor. As they got close, they saw Brando and SS-19 working on the exterior of the ship. Brando looked at them and said, "What can I do you for?" Vinshu said, "You, Dardanel, and the droids up for another job?" Brando asked, "What kind of job? I'm sure we can help for the right price." Andre replied, "Hear any rumors about Jedi hiding out on Tatooine lately?" Dardo Spad came out of the ship and said, "Hear that's a crazy monk living at a hotel in Mos Eisley?" Vinshu said, "That would be the one. We can pay you for transport to Mos Eisley and back to Coruscant." Brando chuckled and said, "Sure, rolling with you boys is always fun. Let's go." The group entered the Contour and would prepare to leave from Coruscant. As the ships took off and hummed across the Coruscant sky, they were lifted into space, jumping into hyperspace. On Nal Hutta, Kedek the Hutt and the Hutt's cartel gathered in the great Hutt auditorium. Kedek, smoking out of his tobacco bong, a hologram would appear in the middle of the auditorium as Dazzle Street spoke to the Hutt's council. "I offer the Hutt's cartel a political deal which can be both profitable and cooperative. The Mandalorians have claimed several systems between Mandalore and Dathomir. We offer fair compensation to the Hutt's cartel to take over political and military control of Terrace in exchange for temporary withdrawal of your units to allow for a successful overthrow of the government. We offer not just a large sum of credits, but we also offer the cartel to continue to conduct business." Hutts talked amongst one another, turning off their translator droids. After a while, consensus was made. Kedek the Hutt said, "We will only consider this if you agree to our terms and conditions. First, we accept this proposition if 100,000 credits are paid for interruption of business, and another 100,000 in accordance with the ingredients. We want the right to conduct business in all of Mandalorian space and to be both the primary trade partner." Dazzle Street replied, "This can be done, Mighty One. Order your forces to retreat." The holocron disappeared. The Hutts laughed among each other. On Terrace, a large withdrawal of Hutt fleets and enforcers had made its evacuation cause a great fear upon Terrace. What happened next, the Terrace government could not foresee, as millions of Mandalorian ships poured into its system and forced themselves upon Terrace. Mandalorians moved swiftly into Terrace, locking down the entire planet within hours. Dazzle Street and Garth Lockness advanced into Terrace Minister's office. The unsuspecting elderly human male with silver hair cowered behind his desk. Dazzle ordered a group of Clan Shiza Mandalorians to arrest the minister and take him off to be imprisoned. Dazzle Street came over the comm system of Terrace and all billboards. "People of Terrace, you have been liberated by the corruption of the Terrace government by the Mandalorian people, and as such you will now become citizens of Mandalore." As Dazzle finished giving her message to the people of Terrace, the Mandalorians forced the people of Terrace under their control. Alvin and Erinu were meditating when Erinu asked, "Master, do you believe it is possible the Sith have returned?" Alvin Merlin thought for a few moments, then replied, "It is always possible, but we cannot confirm the suspicion at this time and must proceed with caution. It is mysterious how many Jedi are being drawn away from the Order and all of the recent plots to undermine peace. For the time, we must be patient until we understand more." Erinu nodded. Meanwhile, on Tatooine, the Condor landed in Mos Eisley spaceport. Brando and Dardo headed one way, and Vinshu and Andre headed to the hotel. At the hotel, a large party and crowd would be gathered as the Hutts were celebrating on the lower level. Cantina music were loud as the two Jedi went to the bar ordering a drink. Vinshu paid the bartender and asked, "Any news?" The droid and a few Twi'leks working at the bar would talk and see some bar brawls. Some of the people had been eaten by the Hutts. Nothing that really caught their attention or stood out. They had seemed to come between a rock and a hard place in their investigation. at the Mos Eisley Hotel. As word carried back to Coruscant about terrorists, the Federation will be locked inside an intense meeting. Damien Dust, the temporary head of state, said, "Citizens of the Federation, we are posed with a serious risk as we spike to the beginning of the Second Mandalorian Wars. This is before us like in ancient times. The threat and the stability of our galaxy, the very right to democracy. Lord Mantell is not safe, nor is the rest of the Federation. The very actions resulting in the assassination of Derek Jones has proven Coruscant is not safe. Systems like Onderon and Duxon are at risk. Our spies indicate a relationship between the Mandalorians and cartel. We have no choice to prepare for war. I have seconded the motion that was planned to be put out by Derek Jones around the creation of a clone army to protect our borders as our forces are strongly outnumbered. Immediate defensive measures will be put forward. The Senate will vote upon the creation of a clone army, to which the majority vote would approve the act." Damien Nuss said proudly, "I promise that we will restore safety and security to the Federation. We will work effectively with Camino cloners, Impolis Massa, and Camino to effectively meet the demands of the Federation. Democracy will not die, and the attempts on the lives of the political members of the Federation will not be tolerated. We will be watching Mandalorians, Hutts, and Jedi movements. Everyone would clap in the Senate chambers, but across Coruscant and many other places, people felt uneasy that they were moving towards a war. On the planet of Droman Kaz, Darth Malthus, Nikhil, and Uriski Khan entered a giant dark fortress in a swamp. Inside it appeared much like Darth Vader's castle. They moved through the grand halls and corridors of the fortress and came to a room where Darth Malthus would sit. He said to them, "The both of you have progressed well in your training so far. Droman Kaz is a powerful place on the dark side. I have a mission for you both." Nikhil bowed and said, "What is your bidding, my master?" Darth Malthus said, "The both of you will travel to Bastion to collect soldiers. You will reinforce Korriban, Mustafar, and bring the last armies to Bastion here to Droman Kaz. When the two of you have completed your mission, you will meet me in Droman Kaz's tombs. I will provide the coordinates to the location." Uriski Khan and Nikhil both bowed. "Yes, master." Uriski Khan and Nikhil left the Dark Fort on Droman Kaz and traveled to Bastion on board their vessels. Nikhil and Uriski were greeted by Imperial Knight Jericho, a renowned Moff known as Mary Edison. Jericho said to them, "Welcome to Bastion. I have heard great things about you both." Nikhil and Uriski nodded. Nikhil would be the first to speak. "We have come to oversee the Stormtrooper Corps for necessary planning." Mary Edison replied, "Knight Jericho and his group of Imperial Knights are excellent commandos. Your master, I am sure, will be pleased with their skills. I can assure the Imperial navies are ready upon request, as I personally take interest in leading as Admiral." As Nikhil, Uriski, Mary Edison, and Jericho Martov looked over the capital city in Bastion, Uriski Khan asked, "I trust your mercenary contacts with the Hutts paid off?" Jericho responded, "Mercenary work definitely brings income, but I feel together we can do much more humble work." Nikhil would ask, "How fares the Emperor?" Mary Edison responded, "The Emperor is old, grows sick, and weaker each day to the point he was appointed by both of us to oversee Bastion, our contracts across the galaxy." Uriski Khan asked, "So there will be a new Emperor soon?" Jericho responded, "The Emperor has no direct heir, as he has no children, and was an only child. The Emperor has stated he has only 2 living relatives who are eligible for the throne. First, I am not at liberty to discuss, but it is a familiar face. The second was lost at infancy, and perhaps could even be dead. The Emperor has requested information pertaining to the Fell family to be kept confidential. As the Fell name dies with him, his closest relation will be the closest thing we have to a Fell." Nikhil and Uriski nodded. On Tatooine, Vinci and Andre had not found any viable leads in the hotel bar. They left and walked through the streets of Mos Eisley. They saw a young man riding a speeder in a Jedi robe and cloak. Both scratched their heads. The young man had some sort of visor band across his eyes that wrapped around his head in a dirty blonde hair. The young man said to them, more Jedi. It is nice to meet you both. He smirked at Vinci and Andre and bowed. Vinci asked the young man, what is your name? I don't believe we have ever met. The young man replied, Brett Samber. I am a Padawan and Jedi Watchman stationed here in Mos Eisley. Andre looked puzzled as he had never met a Jedi Watchman. Andre then said, where is your master, Brett? Brett Samber responded, my master is over at the mechanic shop he purchased from a Mandalorian. It serves as the Order's headquarters here on Mos Eisley. If either one of you are in need, to feel free, stop by anytime. Vinci nodded and said, have you seen any other Jedi come to Mos Eisley lately? Brett Samber thought, then said, I saw a master staying at the hotel. Not sure if he was on business or hiding out. I sensed something conflicting about the man. Andre asked, can you describe what he might have looked like? Brett Samber nodded and then said, he had purple robes and dark skin. He was definitely a human, with an interesting saber hilt, not like anything I had seen before, a single blade if I had to guess. Vinci rubbed his chin and said, that would be Master Nikhil. The Jedi, we are looking for any idea on where he might have gone. Brett Samber said, he left Tatooine, not sure where he might have gone, but he has not returned to Mos Eisley. Left maybe a day before the two of you arrived. Andre frowned. Seems like we just missed him. Vinci then said, I think you should inform your master and keep in touch with the Order. Keep close tabs on the Jedi who come through here. There has been a lot of strange things to happen of late, Brett. Brett Samber nodded and said, I will for sure. I should probably go see him. You're welcome to join me. Vinci replied, I think we should go back to Coruscant with this information. But the next time we are on Tatooine, we will stop by. Brett said, may the Force be with you. Both of them replied the same as Brett and sped off. Vinci and Andre hurried back to their ship, but were cut off in the marketplace. They heard screaming and yelling from the old Imperial garrison. The gang of street thugs ambushed them in the streets. As they were surrounded by the ringleader, a Trandoshan said, where do you think you're going? Vinci Bless responded, we are simply passing through. As Andre looked back, he saw a gang of thugs following Samber's speeder. As Samber went inside the mechanic shop, the doors locked as the mob pounded on the doors. The ringleader then said, you are in exchange territory. Vinci then asked, I thought Tatooine obeyed by the rules of the Hutt. The exchange thug laughed and said, Helga the Hutt allows us to operate in the streets. We are Helga's enforcers. Vinci then said, we are not looking for any trouble, my friend. The Trandoshan let out a yell, then said, I am not your friend. The Trandoshan shouted Vinci. Andre said, I don't think you want to do that, buddy. The Trandoshan pushed Andre next, who ignited his lightsaber. He stabbed the Trandoshan in the gut and began to slaughter the thugs. Vinci yelled out, no, Andre. Andre relentlessly murdered the thugs one by one, slicing off their limbs. As the last thug went running, Vinci looked to Andre and said, don't do it, let him go. Andre struggled to stop himself, then Vinci said, what's wrong with you, Andre? It is not the Jedi way to fight offensively. Andre took a breath and said, I don't know what overcame me, Master. I thought they were going to hurt you. Vinci said, I had things under control. You must learn to calm your mind and not have such outbursts. Andre then said, I am sorry, Master. Andre and Vinci collected themselves and left the scene of the fight. The event had scared off the mob outside of Samber's master's shop. Vinci and Andre returned to the Condor. Spad was sitting on the landing ramp and said, you guys find what you're looking for? Andre walked around him and went on board. Vinci nodded and said, let's get back to Coruscant. In the depths of space, Yuruski Khan could be seen arriving on an Imperial army of stormtroopers on the surface of Korriban, moving into a secret mountain base. Citizens of New Drishdale, who were mostly smugglers, bounty hunters, and employees of the Hutt's cartel, watched closely as armed personnel and legions of stormtroopers moved through the Red Desert. Nikhil, on the other hand, could be seen arriving on Mustafar, reinforcing the fortress and Darth Vader's castle. Darth Malphus stood inside a giant tomb awaiting the return of Nikhil and Yuruski. Darth Malphus could be seen in a hollow call with an elderly man in purple robes. The elderly man said, Cousin, my time soon is coming. As the last member of the Fell Blood, through your mother, you must ensure the survival of Bastion and its people. Darth Malphus said in a manipulative tone, "Of course, my dear cousin. I will ensure the people of Bastion and the Empire survives. If there are any last wishes you have, feel free to let me know." The elderly Emperor said, "I desire Emperor's burial and to be known as the man who preserved the Empire." Darth Malphus nodded and said, "Do not worry, cousin. All will be prepared to be honored and celebrated for you all times." The Federation fleet could be seen swinging into full gear, crashing into the Mandalorian fleet. Jedi Titan fighters and Jedi disobeying the Council's warning could be seen in a silent space. Huge naval battle emerged around the mall, engulfing the scene. Coruscant, the Jedi Council chambers, and the Jedi Council members talked amongst themselves. Jeej asked, "The beginning of a war, this is?" Grandmaster Elvin Merlin responded, "I am afraid so, my old friend." Mos Eisley then replied in a sad tone, "And so the Second Mandalorian Wars has begun." Erna Ling spoke in an upbeat tone, "The very fabric of our order will be tested." Kyron Dragon nodded, "We will see if our order will survive. I sense this war will break the Federation." Grandmaster Elvin said, "Only time can tell." As the Jedi meditate outside the temple, Vinshu and most of the Jedi are gathered in the gardens in a ceremony as Vinshu is granted the title of a master, as well as Mantis Grieve and several other former Jedi Knights. At the landing pad, Brando and Dardio are picking up as they see Coruscant streets ahead of them. Being put on curfew and lockdown, Brando said to Dardio, "Time to get out of Coruscant, buddy." Dardo responded, "Couldn't be more right about that, partner." Brando, Dardo, and the droids on board the Condor got out of Coruscant before things got even worse. The Condor took off, leaving Coruscant, and would arrive on Kessel as Brando and Dardo went to do another spice run for the Hutt's cartel. Kedic the Hutt, Kassa, Helga, and many more Hutts gathered in Nal Hutta, locked in a deep discussion. Helga the Hutt said, "These Jedi just slaughtered a group of exchanged thugs in Mos Eisley. They cannot be trusted." Kassa the Hutt then said, "They made a mess of the boardwalk and rallied the Undercity citizens." Kedic the Hutt smoked a bit from his bong and said, "We will put out a 10,000 credit bounty on each Jedi traveling within Hutt territory. For the Federation, we will continue to support and reinforce the Mandalorian in a discreet way as we have been doing so. The Mandalorians are beginning to ravage a main trade route in the Outer Rim, and the planets of the Federation will be forced into a war they cannot win. We will crush the Federation and force the survivors to the core. Ryloth and many other systems will return to our rule." Tuco the Hutt said, "Spice business is booming in Kessel. I am traveling to Ganaria and several other planets to manifest the best stuff in the galaxy. The Federation does not have enough forces to control smuggled goods or spice deals." Kedic laughed and said, "We control the entire underworld, and soon we will control the entire galaxy." All the Hutts began laughing, farting, and passing out or smoking. On Dromling Kaz, in some ancient tomb, Darth Malphus sat on a throne. As Yuruski Khan and Nikio approached, he watched them closely. Nikio and Yuruski bowed, taking a knee as they had successfully stationed the hidden Imperial armies of the Lord. Darth Malphus said, "Good. Things are going as planned. Soon we will begin to construct a real army. We must continue our efforts to keep the Jedi weak and pinned down. The Federation will collapse in the years to come, and like a dagger across cloth, we will cut them apart inch by inch. Before the galaxy knows what is going on, it will be too late to save them. You both have done well. It is time for you to spy and investigate upon the Jedi. There are many enclaves scattered all across. We must find them all." Yuruski Khan asked, "Isn't our goal to destroy the temple on Coruscant?" Malphus nodded and said rationally, "Yes, Coruscant is the main goal, but we must leave no stone unturned. We must be ready to strike all of the enclaves in case we meet resistance, but the time has not quite come yet. It will take much time to put our plans into motion." Acolytes. Yuruski Khan nodded. Nakir Rutherford then said, "The Jedi will suspect me and Yuruski's involvement. The next time we go to Coruscant, they will surely know it." Darth Malphus said, "This is why you must go to Coruscant. must not go to Coruscant. I have generated a list of plans of potential Jedi enclaves and sites I would like you to spend time at. Do not cut corners or leave any Jedi planet until you have all of the information outlined in your mission. I have left details for your droids. Even if you must spend years in one location, do not return empty-handed, or I will kill the both of you. Nikhil nodded and said, I guess we must be off. Nikhil bowed and headed out of the tomb. Yersi Khan also bowed and would exit the tomb, not wanting to get on Darth Morphus' bad side. As the two dark figures moved across the swamps of Dromenkaz, everything would go black. We would travel back to an unknown time period where we would see a youngling version of Vinshu Blessed. He would be standing in the Grand Hall of the Jedi Temple on the day that him, Mantis, John, Massimo, Victor, Brody, and several other Jedi of Vinshu's age and rank could be seen dressed, getting inducted into the Jedi Order. Darth Morphus dressed in purple senator-like robes with no injuries on his face. He was not yet mechanical, as you could see in the vision. Master Kafar stood beside him and said, My friend, I am glad you could make it to the ceremony. Morphus nodded and said, I could not miss my brother John on his acceptance into the Order. I know he doesn't know about me. We will look after him, Matthew. Do not worry, said Kafar. Darth Morphus, or Matthew, as he was known at this time, said, He would have made a fine prince, you know. Matthew chuckled. Then Kafar said, How are things with your brother, the Emperor, and Bastian, you know? Matthew responded, My brother, His Majesty, is doing good. He is in Coruscant celebrating with Mikhail and Master Elvin, commemorating 140 years since the great peace between our nations, beginning the celebration of heroes and legends of the Second Imperial Civil War. Kafar nodded and said, It is a good celebration. Another century or two of peace, I hope. Good relations between the new Jedi Order, Fel Empire, Bastion, and the Federation. This remains so always, I pray. Matthew smiled coyly, then said, As an Imperial Senator and member of the Imperial family, I will always try my best to see this happen. My brother looks favorably upon our allies. Morphus would hear his comm going off and said, Excuse me, old friend, Imperial business. Matthew left the Jedi Temple and was standing in the Jedi Temple gardens outside when he took the comm call. Yes, my master. A hologram of a dark figure and a dark hood could be seen. It was hard to tell who or what he was, but it was clear he was the master of Darth Morphus. The old dark voice of his master said the time has come to poison your brother. He will become a puppet until his slow death. Darth Morphus bowed and nodded as the holocron disappeared. He got inside of a speeder and drove to the after party of Imperial senators, Federation senators, and a handful of the Jedi. Darth Morphus joined the party discreetly, having a few drinks. Then he would go to where his brother, Emperor Fel, was. He would put a solution in his drink that was poisonous, the same solution that his master had given him. Matthew, or Darth Morphus, as he would become known in the years later, would greet his brother. He smiled and hugged. Emperor Fel, a mid-aged man with blonde hair and a mustache, laughed. My brother Matthew, this is a good time for all of us. He grabbed his drink and took a drink. Matthew said, Christopher, the last true Fel. Emperor Fel, or Christopher, as Matthew called him, said, Although our parents were siblings, you were adopted by my father. And you've always been my brother, and the closest family I've ever had. Emperor Fel chugged the rest of his drink. As he began to laugh with the other Imperial Federation senators, the young Darth Morphus slipped out of the cantina and would jump in his speeder, flying through the cluster of traffic, disappearing into the city itself. Darth Morphus went deeper below the Undercity, coming to the further level of the city, traveling through a huge sewer duct that led him to the Undercity. He avoided the sick and deranged creatures below while navigating through a series of tunnels until he entered an ancient dark gate where he would land in the dark chamber. He walked through the dark chamber, coming to a dark grand hall that had Sith symbols all around. The dark elderly figure removed his hood. A Nagay with her white hair could be seen. His skin was black and faded as white. He held a staff in his hand. The dark figure said, This ancient Sith shrine was once the center of the Sith on Coruscant before the Jedi came. Only I know of its location, and now so do you. From here we will rebuild the Sith, for you are the first apprentice I have taken in over a century. I will teach you everything I know, and you will become strong." Darth Malthus nodded and said, "Yes, Nihil, my master." As the two Sith could be seen walking through the ancient dark halls of Coruscant Sith Temple, the old shrine was purely black, blacker than the dark side of the Force itself. A full-scale invasion of many planets by the Mandalorians could be seen. Death and destruction, many alien planets, as if looking into the future. The Federation and armies moved in full-scale counterattack as we moved to the present time. The Second Mandalorian War had officially begun, with the loss of major trade routes and all of the planets in the path of the Mandalorian invaders. The Federation, unable to resist anymore, they began their campaign to halt and stop the expensive Mandalorians. This war would only be the beginning of many more to come, as years of war would follow.